We were sitting in a 24-hour diner at 2 in the morning, sharing a plate of pancakes that neither of us was really eating, and she looked at me across that sticky Formica table with an intensity that made the rest of the world go quiet. It was our fourth date. Fourth, we had known each other for 11 days, and she reached across the table, took my hand, and said, "I can already tell you're going to be an amazing father. I want 2 kids, maybe 3. And I was thinking Lily for a girl, or maybe James after my grandfather. Our kids would have your eyes, you know, that steel blue. I love that." Our kids, names picked out. Fourth date. I hadn't even met her sister yet. I didn't know her middle name, I hadn't seen her apartment, and she was already planning our retirement, asking if I preferred the mountains or the coast for our 50th anniversary trip. And instead of running for the door like any sane person should have, instead of recognizing this as a giant red flag waving so hard it could generate electricity, I leaned in. I felt chosen. I felt seen. I felt like I had won some kind of lottery that every other guy on Hinge was still scratching tickets to win. I thought, she's serious about me. She's already planning the future. This is what commitment looks like when someone isn't afraid of it. 3 weeks later, she vanished. Not a slow fade, not a gradual cooling, not a respectful conversation about incompatibility, a full evaporate, blocked on Instagram, text green and unanswered. That diner, those pancakes, that conversation about baby names and anniversary locations, all of it turned to vapor. After talking about wedding venues and which of her cousins would be bridesmaids and how we'd handle Christmas with both families, she just deleted me from her life like I'd been a stranger on the bus who asked for the time. If you've ever had someone paint a breathtaking future with you, marriage, moving in together, meeting parents, growing old, only to ghost you before that future even became the present, before you even made it official, you've been future faked. And it is the most psychologically disorienting trap in modern dating because it feels exactly like the highest level of commitment when it's actually just the highest level of fantasy and emotional projection. This happened to me with a woman named Claire. By date 3, she had our anniversary date picked out June 14th because that was the day we matched. By date 5, she was sending me Zillow listings for houses in the suburbs we could look at together this weekend just for fun. She talked about our wedding colors, sage green and dusty rose, and joked about what I'd look like bald at 60 and whether our hypothetical daughter would inherit my tendency to over-explain things. It wasn't just vague future talk, it was detailed, textured, emotionally saturated future casting that felt more real than the actual date we were on. And I ate it up because in 2026, when everyone else is afraid to commit to dinner plans next week, when every other match is juggling 3 people and keeping options open, someone committing to your entire life trajectory feels like finding water in a desert. It feels like winning. The critical misread, the one that cost me 3 months of recovery time, is thinking that she was falling in love with me. She wasn't. Not really. She was falling in love with the idea of a relationship, the concept of safety, the fantasy of a husband who would finally be different from all the men who had hurt her before. I was just the placeholder she plugged into the role of future husband, while she played out her internal movie. When reality started demanding actual work, the boring Tuesday nights, the negotiating of schedules, the real me with my flaws and my bad days and my need for patience, she checked out instantly. Because the fantasy doesn't argue about whose turn it is to do dishes. The fantasy doesn't have morning breath or credit card debt or moments of insecurity. The fantasy is perfect, and reality is messy, and she was only ever signed up for the perfect version. Let me break down the psychology of future faking so you can see it coming before you mortgage your emotional well-being on a blueprint that was never going to be built. Future faking is a form of fantasy bonding, an emotional shortcut where someone creates intense artificial intimacy by skipping all the intermediate steps of trust building and jumping straight to the end game of deep commitment. It's like reading the last chapter of a novel and claiming you understand the whole story, or like buying furniture for a house you haven't even put an offer on yet. In 2026 dating culture, especially with the overwhelming app fatigue and the paradox of choice where everyone suspects there might be someone better one swipe away, future faking has become a widespread defense mechanism. It's easier to dream about the wedding than it is to endure the awkward vulnerability of the third date. It's safer to imagine the retirement villa than it is to risk rejection by actually merging your life with another flawed human being. But here's the truly cruel part that messes with your head for months afterward. She believes it when she says it. In that diner booth at 2 in the morning, under those fluorescent lights, she really did think I was the one. The dopamine was real, the oxytocin was flowing, her nervous system was flooded with bonding chemicals. But that's the difference between emotional projection and relational investment. One is a movie she plays in her head for comfort. The other is a bridge she builds, plank by plank, into the actual future. complete with the hard work of conflict resolution and compromise. Here are the 3 specific signs that you're being future faked rather than future planned, so you can spot this before you're picking out China patterns for a wedding that exists only in her imagination. Sign 1. Timeline compression. Does she compress a 5-year relationship timeline into the first month of dating? Is she talking about month 6 milestones, year 2 plans, or marriage fantasies before you've even had the exclusivity conversation? Secure attachment builds sequentially and organically. First date, second date, the conversation about not seeing other people, meeting friends, meeting family, discussing moving in. Future fakers compress this into a montage. They want the emotional payoff of deep commitment, the safety, the belonging, the we're in this together feeling without the earned trust that makes it actually safe. If she's picking out China patterns or naming your children before you've had your first significant disagreement about something real, she's not planning a future with you. She's using you to escape the uncertainty of the present. Sign 2. The fantasy details. Does she get hyper-specific about imaginary scenarios that feel more like screenplay writing than planning? Our daughter Lily will play soccer, and you'll coach the team, and we'll drive her to practice in that blue Subaru Outback, and I'll bring orange slices for the kids. Real planning involves logistics and questions. Do you want kids? When? How would we handle childcare with our careers? What are your thoughts on private versus public school? Fantasy is decorative and aesthetic. Reality is structural and logistical. If she's painting beautiful pictures but not building the scaffolding to hold them up, you're living in her romance novel, not her life plan, and you're going to be written out of the script the moment the plot requires actual character development. Sign 3. The generic role. This is the biggest and most painful tell. When she talks about this future, are you specifically you with all your unique quirks and traits, or are you just the guy wearing a cardboard cutout that says husband? Did she say, I love how patient you are with kids. I watched you with your nephew and you'd be such a thoughtful dad? Or did she say, you're going to be such a good dad? The first sees you. The second sees a role to be filled. Future fakers need a lead actor for their movie. They don't need the complex, 3-dimensional reality of you. You could be interchangeable with any guy who showed up and validated the script she was already writing. So here's the fix. It's called the grounding technique, and it will save you from the devastating whiplash of the future fake. When she starts future faking, when she brings up marriage, kids, moving in together, or decades down the road plans, you don't play along with the fantasy and feed it with your own dreams. You also don't shut it down cold and make her feel rejected. Instead, you ground it. You anchor her in the present reality. You say something like, I really appreciate that you're thinking about a future with me. That means a lot. But I want to make sure we're enjoying right now first, building this step by step. What's been your favorite thing we've done together so far? This response does something psychologically powerful. It forces presence. It tests whether she can actually tolerate the reality of you. The you that exists today, not the imaginary perfect husband she projects onto you in 6 years. Future fakers get bored with the present moment. They need the dopamine hit of fantasy to maintain interest because reality makes them anxious. When you ground them in today, in the actual experience of being with you, they either adapt and start building with you brick by brick, or they fade away because you're not enough of an escape anymore. But here's the hardest part that requires real self-discipline. You have to stop eating the fantasy yourself. It feels incredible to be cast as the hero in someone's future. It validates your ego. It makes you feel special and chosen and necessary. But if you accept the role too early, if you start mentally moving her in and planning around her and imagining the wedding, you become complicit in your own future disappointment. You start declining other dates. You stop keeping your options open. You mentally construct the house, and when she ghosts, you're not just losing her. You're grieving the loss of the home, the kids, the life you already imagined you'd build together. With Claire, I made this mistake completely. I started looking at apartments in her neighborhood just to see what was available. I pictured our weekends. I told my friends about this girl I'm probably going to marry. And when she disappeared without explanation 3 weeks after the diner, leaving me with nothing but silence and blocked accounts, I grieved a marriage that had never even been proposed, a life that had never existed outside of her imagination and my willingness to believe it. The future fake cost me twice, the loss of her and the loss of the elaborate fantasy I had invested in, built on sand, and watched wash away. You deserve someone who plans Tuesday night, not just the wedding. You deserve someone who wants to pour the foundation and lay the pipes, not just pick out the curtains for a house that will never be built. Drop grounded in the comments if you're done with fantasy dating and ready for reality. Or drop faked if you've been through this specific hell. Stop being the extra in her future movie. Start being the man she has to earn day by showing up in the present.